Hello, this is Jordan of Damn Good Technology. First of all, an apology. I haven't produced videos in a while. I hope to be more consistent because I do care about the tech community and I desire to produce great content so you and your team can thrive. I've just been going through a rough patch lately and my mental health has been negatively affected. I do appreciate your patience as I get better about being a more consistent content producer. That said, before we begin, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It boosts my confidence, but it also boosts yours because you'll get industry tips and tricks to improve your technology and set your team apart. This video is a two-parter about ethical leadership and technology. In the first video, I'll provide an Ethics 101 crash course, like why ethics? Don't worry though, I'll make it fun. Why ethics? Where do they come from? Why are they important? In 2026, a lot of powerful people are advancing technology at a breakneck pace without asking what it's costing humanity or the planet. Before we go any further, I have an encouragement. I respect all beliefs, and I encourage you to follow whatever spiritual or religious beliefs you have. But I'd recommend not watching this video through that lens. I myself am no Christian, but I always get a deeper understanding of philosophy if I don't try to compare it against the Bible, but if I just treat it as such, philosophy. So if you consider ethics from an anthropological or historical perspective, I think you'd get a lot more out of this video. So, where do we get ethics? Well, as long as there have always been humans hitting each other over the head with rocks to get to the better watering hole, there have always been people who thought, maybe hitting each other over the head with a rock may not be the best way to get a better watering hole. Even before the earliest writings, there have most likely been members of a community whom people looked to for how to live. Around the time communities and writing emerged, we then see the earliest written laws, such as the Stone of Hammurabi, one of the earliest written laws. Now we can see the ethics a community must abide by instead of simply because the chief says so. If you look at history, you'll see countless communities that create their own ethical standards by which to live. There could be an entire video on its own on this topic. But for now, we'll fast forward to about 400 BCE and take a plane ride to ancient Greece and ancient Rome. This is where most historians agree is the birthplace of Western philosophy. This is where we get the major Western philosophers. You've no doubt heard of many of them: Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and of course, Pythagoras, who decided it wasn't enough to give you history homework, so he assigned geometry homework as well. It's easy to think of these early thinkers as armchair psychologists, and for the most part they were. For example, in Ethics of Aristotle, Aristotle writes,
Thus then, happiness is most excellent, most noble, and most pleasant, and these attributes are not separated as in the well-known Delian inscription. Most notable is that which is most just, but best is health, and naturally, most pleasant is the obtaining one's desires. For all these coexist in the best acts of working, and we say that happiness is these, or one that is the best of them.
Even so, early philosophers were surprisingly meta in their thinking. Even while Aristotle states happiness is the best of them, he also wrestles with what happiness is, and that what it might mean for one person might not be the same for someone else. The theme of happiness and desires becomes central to a lot of the Western philosophy, even as we get into the classical era. In fact, two major schools of thought emerge about this time. First is the Stoics. Simply put, Stoics avoid emotion and deny natural desires. The opposition party was Epicureans, who, instead of denying pleasure, refined them to pursue pleasures of the mind. These philosophies emerged around 300 to 200 BCE. Notice the date we're coming toward? 0 CE. Now class, can anyone tell me what major historical event happened in 0 CE? That's right, the birth of Jesus. You might think Jesus turned philosophy and ethics in a new direction, and you're partially right. During his life, Jesus was virtually nobody. Even when he was executed as nothing more than an annoying rebel Rome wanted to be rid of to keep the peace. Even though Jesus himself didn't disrupt anything, his followers did, most notably Paul the Apostle. His writings and the writings of his predecessors challenged unethical leadership and encouraged others to deny oneself in order to become righteous. These become what's known as Judeo-Christian teachings and will eventually influence philosophy, as we'll soon see. Philosophers saw this Judeo-Christian influence on philosophy, and most even adopted it, and began to ponder whether there is such a thing as a natural law that all humans fall under. And most Western philosophers considered the natural ethical law heavily Judeo-Christian. However, Islam, which also taught that an ethical life meant following Allah, became a source of contentions with the Christian world with the dark chapter of the Crusades. While the Crusades were a dark time in human history, it also shed light on the importance of thinking critically about ethics. For a long time, ethical framework was always steeped heavily in religion. This meant that if someone didn't follow a certain religion, they were automatically an unethical person. Seeing this, scholasticism emerged, which sought to reconcile faith and reason to avoid religious fervor and nudge humanity to a more peaceful place. However, what brought philosophy to the forefront in the 17th and 18th century was the Enlightenment era. The scientific method helped guide philosophy into a more legitimate direction. No more did philosophers have to write generalities, but they could use a framework to prove or disprove their claims, and create taxonomy for their terms. The 17th and 18th century also coincided with the Pilgrim separation from England to become the United States. Philosophers like Hobbes and Locke focused on individual rights and the legitimacy of government. Even though the first computer wouldn't be built for nearly 2 centuries, these writings are still used in technical discussions about ethics, such as discussions of mass surveillance and privacy, because a lot of the threats early America faced mirror the threats we still face today. After Enlightenment and the foundation of America, we move through the 19th century to modern day, where we start to see discussions of technology and its role in ethics. With the start of the Industrial Revolution, we also see how corporate greed and the desire to achieve progress results in unethical working conditions, such as child labor, and how laws curbed and even ended a lot of the dangerous practices. And now, here we are in the year 2026. We've come so far in our definition and understanding of ethics, but of course, we have a long way to go. The topic of philosophy and ethics is a difficult one to cover, not because it's so dense, it is, but because we're coming into it with our own biases. I tried to keep this as unbiased as possible while still setting it up for a more biased take on ethics in part 2. And don't worry, I'll get biased. If you found this video interesting and you haven't yet hit subscribe, now's your chance. I provide valuable tips and tricks for your software team so you can build better product and leave a lasting legacy. Also, if you want to take your product to the next level, I'd like to invite you to get a hold of me. You can send an email to jordan@damngood.tech to set up a free 1-hour consultation. Or if you don't prefer email, I'm available on other social media like Twitter, Mastodon, TikTok, YouTube, of course, and so you can feel free to get a hold of me that way. All the links are available at damngood.tech. That said, I thank you for watching the first part. I hope you stay tuned for part 2, where I talk about how we can incorporate ethical tech leadership into our organization as well as in our community. As for now, let's remember to practice kindness because I care about you and your business.